I'm a big fan of heroism as a metaphor for being a person that is empowered to, you know, solve problems and create solutions. And I work as a heroism educator slash life coach, you could say. I have a life coaching business called Hero Support Guy. And what that is think of it as every Batman needs an Alfred. So I'm Alfred. People often think that I'm trying to say that I'm Batman, but I'm really trying to say you're Batman, because anybody that's a hero in the movies, right, whether it's Wonder Woman or Batman or anybody else, they're always trying to manage a city, you know, like Superman has Metropolis, Batman has Gotham City. And so you guys are people who are managing day-to-day situations at work, at home, at school, at church, on the bus, wherever. And so if you see yourself as a person that has the power to influence things, then you realize, how do I want to use my power? You know, do I want to use it in a way that's constructive and builds things up and advances progress toward goals? Or I could use it in a way that's destructive and, you know, damaging of rapport with me and others. And we know in the movies, there's names for that, right? The characters that are usually the bad guys. And then there's other characters in the movies that are kind of standing by, you know, like a bystander. Sometimes there's people in a henchman role, that's where they're working for the bad guy, but they value like things like making money maybe, but they don't really care about how they're affecting people. If you think about the couple characters from that movie Dumb and Dumber, they're like going after these guys to get some money back, and you know, they're kind of bumbling and funny. But that's a character type. And for me, character is just all about how you manage day-to-day situations. And so everybody can benefit from having a hero support guy. And for me, guy means guide to the ultimate you. So it could be anyone. It doesn't just mean a man. You know, it could be just a person that is, we all usually have someone like that. For me, it's my mom. So for the last, 10 years, as I've been working on my own program, I might say, and it's my daughter, she's looking at me funny. I have my 11-year-old. She says that she's my emotional support human. That's another part of being a hero support guy. You know, you help people to feel good about themselves when maybe no one else does, right? So that's a little bit about me and what I'm up to. I also wanted to share my screen here with you. So this, what we're here doing is what I call a hero training webinar, right? And so in addition to hero support guy, I also have what I call Sean Fury's Heroify Your Life hero training webinars. And I think Debbie knows that I'm developing an app through some mutual friends of ours, and called passion.io. And my app is called Heroify. So that's another, you can tell I like to be creative. Heroify is a word for me that I came up with that means two things. It means what I said earlier, becoming a person that has a high level of knowledge and skills about how to manage situations, and then using that knowledge and skills to try to create what I call empowerment zones, or situations where people can be their full self in life, reach their self-actualization, and also have a good rapport with people along the way, right? Because we already know how to make money in life, and a lot of people have heard stories about people that became rich, during the Great Depression or whatever, but then when their stocks and bonds crashed, they were jumping out of windows, right? Because they weren't happy. And so what I think is important is that along the way to pursuing your goals, you treat people well and insist that they treat you well. And together you guys can have a good life along the way. And so that by the time your ship comes in, it's just one of the ways that you're a success and not the only way, right? So it's kind of like succeeding at life is what I call it. And I like to focus on emotional well-being and managerial well-doing. So in other words, you feel good as a human being because you're in a good situation. And it's not just, your imagination, you're actually doing things to cultivate a good experience. And you're also feeling very empowered because you're making progress toward your goals, because you're in situations where, things aren't really stopping you, right? Like we've all been in family and friend groups where you get mocked for pursuing your goal. And so a lot of people won't even try to achieve a goal because their friend group doesn't support it. And so that's where the whole hero thing comes in, is you really have to have a lot of courage and persistence. And that's what this particular webinar for me is focused on. Is I picked you fellow speakers because I noticed that each of you is doing something that is what I call self-actualized, right? You're creating whatever business, or you're trying to create an app, or you're doing some kind of coaching and support type of stuff, or you got a podcast that you're doing. And the point is, it's what you're creating, you're doing it, even if other people might not like it. You know, why are we here in particular is to celebrate that willingness to develop a dream of what the future could be like, and the decision to commit to making it a reality, right? So you decide what your dream is. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't mean making $1 million. It just means, what do you want to do with your time while you're alive on planet Earth, today or tomorrow? You know, little things that you could make a priority that are uniquely you. And by doing that, it's kind of what I call dreamscaping. You're setting up the situation in a way that will help you to bring about what you dream of doing. Um, and for me, that was this, right? I grew up in a family, my mom and I can tell you, we had to escape actually from my dad, who was physically violent to both of us and to my three younger siblings. And I mean that literally. We escaped in the middle of the night. And because, you know, my dad had threatened to hurt people. Um, so my point of that story is, A, my dad's not alive anymore. So, and I love him and miss him, and I'd give him a hug if he was here. But unfortunately, he had a really bad life, and a lot of bad things happened to him. And it was mainly because of one big thing. Just like most of us, he never got taught anything about how to manage day-to-day situations, right? I call that life management. So I mentioned earlier my app called Heroify. It's meant to be kind of like a gym in your pocket that you can access through your phone. But instead of working on your physical fitness, you work on your managerial fitness, so that when life happens, you'll know what to do. The other thing we're here about is to inspire people to think about what they would like to have happen in their day-to-day life. What's their dream? What's your dream? And to give a little bit of guidance and encouragement and support, and some examples of you from you guys of how you might have done that or are doing that. And that way, as the people in the audience are getting started on their own journey. And I call that toward Awesome Town, which is just a state of, you know, achieving your goal, right? If you Google the word success, there's a couple different definitions, but for me, it just means you achieved a goal that you set. So it could be as simple as, not that it's simple, but my mom has been working on a weight loss goal, right, Lois?
Yes.
And you've achieved it. You've lost like 25 pounds. So
Yes.
Wow.
that's, you know, that's cool. That's a dream. So before we get into the speakers and who are here to kind of, you know, give us those little examples, let me share that for me, I mentioned a hero is just an ordinary mortal who kind of becomes or sees themselves as an empowered problem solver in this case, right? Compared to those other character types I mentioned that are kind of like intentional problem creators, right? We don't want to go around intentionally creating problems for ourselves and others. And we also don't want to, you know, enable people to stay stuck. Like I said, me and Katie have worked in the drug and alcohol recovery field, and we all, in my dad's case, one of the things that I regretted was that there was no one in his life that ever said to him, "Hey, are you okay? Like, let's talk about emotional self-care." You know, like, it seems like you're going through a lot. You're not really talking about it. You're kind of acting out in anger. And the reason there wasn't anyone like that is because the people he was hanging out with were enabling him, right? Nothing's wrong. It's okay. So that's my motivation, is coming from, like Batman. I like to say, you know, Batman saw his parents get killed. And so he has a lot of inner drive to protect the streets of Gotham City, right? Because he doesn't want that to happen to anyone else. And so my mom and I both help each other in my life coaching business and help other people. And Katie's a part of it, and my brother Steve, who's here, and a couple other people here. I've also participated. Carrie has come to the seminars and spoke at them. And we're just all kind of helping people to develop that awareness that they have the power to improve situations. And typically I'm focused on it as you're a guardian of the good life, right? What can you do to make your social ecosystem better? But tonight we're focusing on progress and creating pathways toward goal attainment, making your dream come true, whatever it is. So real quick, guys, just my little part of, what I would like to offer people in terms of inner resources that you can understand and develop to help you to make progress toward your goals is, number one, that we're living in a universe of infinite possibilities, right? Where there's something called the universal law of cause and effect. And what this means is that one thing happens and another thing is affected, right? So you've heard the butterfly effect idea, that a butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the world and it causes like a hurricane over here. My point is simply that reality itself is structured in a way that supports change, right? Whether it's accidental or intentional. And whoops, let me just come back there. And so the other thing to go with that is that each of us was born with some certain faculties that we take for granted, like imagination, right? Maybe it's not just for thinking about your next boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe it's actually a blueprint generator for what kind of reality you would like to experience, right? Um, and we have a thoughtful mind for which we can take that thing that we're envisioning, that blueprint for what I'd like to have in the future, and we can bring it down into our thoughtful mind and come up with a plan. And then we can act on that with our free will, and obviously in the physical world here with our voice and our arms and our legs and our hands and our feet. And so I like to say that that is your not so secret superpower, the power to influence situations and to make progress toward goals. Um, so the picture is kind of an example of that. The artist, right? You're the painter, and what kind of situation do you want to paint right now, right? Or what would you like to create in the future in terms of your long-term dreams? Um, and why should you use this power? Because you're not the only one with this power to influence things. Other people have that power as well, and they might not have your best interest in mind. So it's important that we all get educated around what that power is, and maybe the ethics of how we influence situations, right? So I like to say that this is a way of saying that you're a change agent, right? And I touched on that earlier, that depending on how you use your power of influence kind of reveals what kind of agent of change you are. And I show a picture of I think that's a dryer there. And just because a washer machine and a dryer are examples of change agents, right? They change something from wet to dry and dry to wet. So when you're in the situation, you have an effect on the situation and you change things as well. So studying heroes kind of helps us to know more about, and characters in movies helps us to know more about the ways that different character types influence things. And my personal perspective and professional observation is that the hero character seems to be best equipped for making it to the end of the story, right? You watch the movies yourself and tell me if it's different. But for the most part, there's a reason for that. And I believe it's because each of the different characters we see in the movies represent a pattern of behavior. And that we don't want to get stuck in those patterns of behavior, right? Because they're going to limit how far we can go. And so for me, the hero character is your authentic, spontaneous self. It's the real you that is capable of basically achieving your dream. And it's the you that feels and cares and notices and thinks and wants to express yourself. Whereas a lot of the other character types, you'll notice that in any situation they just keep doing the same thing. It's kind of like autopilot or something. But I get into that more in other trainings. So for tonight, I just want you guys to kind of think about what's your superpower, right? Like, how do you know what you want to do? What are you, and the answer for me to figure that out is, what are you uniquely good at, right? What gives you energy? That's how I know. I know what my daughter just said sugar. What gives me energy is learning stuff and sharing it with people. It's pro empowerment, right? And like I said, kind of like Batman, I have that childhood motivator where I didn't like what was happening at home. So now I'm motivated to intervene and solve problems, because in my family, there was nobody coming to help us, right? So that provides me with a lot of like inner fuel. So you can figure out, what is your inner fuel? What are you passionate about? And for me, it's usually something that you could do all day or night and not even get paid for, and you still would choose it, right? Just like what I'm doing here. We're doing this for free just to help the world and bring ourselves together and celebrate, you know, making progress toward goals and having a vision and being inspired. And that's worth it, right? Just on its own. So I mentioned Batman. He's my example for what's your purpose. That's going to be important. Figure out what gives you energy. Find out what you could do with it, right? Sometimes I say turn your pain into power, turn your power into purpose, and turn your purpose into possibility. So in other words, if you know a lot about what it's like to lose a loved one, you could help other people that have gone through that, right? If you know a lot about some other, what it's like to be homeless, you could help people who are homeless, or experiencing that. And so just like Batman, who lost his family and now wants to protect Gotham City. I think Robin's going to talk a little bit about her experience later with what's your why. But for me, this is just another one of those important things. You have to have a reason to keep going, because it is going to get tough, especially if you're a first generation cycle breaker. You're breaking the pattern of whatever, drama that your family went through when you were a kid. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Sometimes people would say, what do you need all that schooling for? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just going to college. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal to people that haven't gone, you know what I mean? And that they don't think you need it. So it's important that you can sustain your progress even when you want to give up. And trust me, you're going to want to give up because there's so many people that are going to want to, they're going to think you're doing something wrong. Like for me, talking about heroism all day, a lot of people don't give themselves permission to shine, right? They don't give themselves permission to be proud of themselves in public, because they correctly have identified along the way that that's a real quick way to get knocked down, right? Some of my friends from Australia have talked about tall poppy syndrome, and you basically, if you seem like you're trying to be above or better than, you get cut down. And a lot of times when you're trying to have a high self-esteem and be proud of yourself and raise the standards on what self-esteem means in your family or friend group, people are going to misunderstand that and think you're a big jerk. And you're just this arrogant person. And I've experienced that. So that's going to be really important. What's holding you back is another big one. For me, it was imposter syndrome. I don't think I'm worthy of this. I don't know if I can do this. Like, can I start a seminar? Am I good enough? And a guy that had spoken at our last seminar, Todd Palmer, helped me with that, which was really great. And lastly, of course, I mentioned my app, Heroify. That's the answer to this question. What resources could you add or access that would boost your power to make your dream a reality? And for me, that's my Heroify managerial fitness training and support center in your pocket. I have over like 100 or 200 plus audio tracks and little forms to fill out. And we do a weekly community, me and Lois and Katie and a couple other people. And I charge $10 a month for that community part, but the app is free for now. But anyways, guys, hopefully if you can do all that stuff, you'll be able to make it to what I call Awesome Town. And I think I have that slide elsewhere, but I'll stop right there for now so we can keep moving. Any quick thoughts or comments on that? That makes sense, Lois?
Yeah.
Debbie?
When you were talking, you mentioned how that the app, you said when life happens, you'll know what to do with things on the app. And I have to tell you that has been particularly important for me. I can only speak for myself, but there has been so much of a negative default in pattern in my life growing up that at 65 years old, change does not come easy with my thought patterns. And you mentioned that thing about, worthy or worthless. I spent the better part of my life allowing other people to define me with their put downs and stuff. So for me, jumping on the treadmill at 5:30 in the morning and listening to a 30-minute training on personal empowerment that Sean offers is not optional. It has been such a huge lifeline for me, and just helps me to think correctly in my behalf, I guess I would say, because I had typically all my life been what you would call a caretaker. And I do love people, but I understand now that I am worthy to love me as well, and that I don't have to do either or. I can do both. And that has been a huge shift for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Lois. Well, I'll have Carrie, why don't you start us off, and then we'll have Tara go after you, and then Sean.
Oh, Lord, I'm the first one.
How you doing, Carrie?
Way to throw me on the spot. Thank you, Sean.
How is your journey going?
Oh, we have some rough patches. I will freely admit that.
Yay!
Yeah.
Woo!
No, it's my journey is ever growing, because what stopped me isn't one thing that I can fix. It's something that's going to live with me for the rest of my life. I wrote all this down, and I think I'm just not going to read what I wrote and just speak, because I'm going to have to look over there and it's going to look weird. But Sean asked me to speak tonight on my story and what obstacles I overcame to be able to get to where I am now. And I remember writing down that I own my own business. I work from home. In fact, I'm doing the normal work from home, and I've got sweatpants on underneath of here. You guys can't see.
Nice.
Come on, everybody who does meetings wears sweatpants.
Right?
Nobody wears actual pants. But I run my own business. I have a very small YouTube channel, and at 30, I went back to college, and that doesn't seem like it's a huge deal. But it is for me, and once you hear my story, you might understand. I grew up with a very abusive father, like Sean. We've had a lot of discussions about that.
Yeah.
But my father wasn't just physically abusive. He was verbally, emotionally, psychologically, whatever you want to call it. It was the whole shebang. And I grew up constantly being told I was stupid, I was useless, I would never amount to anything, so why bother trying? And coupled with the physical abuse, I developed PTSD, which is my reason that will never get better. I won't ever, it'll be with me for the rest of my life. I've just had to learn how to cope with it.
Yeah.
But I grew up never being good enough. And when I wanted to do this business thing, it terrified me, because I would always hear that voice in the back of my head telling me the same things my dad told me, that I was stupid, I was useless, I'd never amount to anything, so why bother trying? And I had to go through therapy. Really important. Mental health does require therapy. You can't do it on your own. And you especially cannot do it without a really good support network. I have a great support network. Sean is part of that, I have to say. There he is smiling.
Thank you.
But yes, see, I always know you can help me out. But in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder, but nothing ever worked. And that's why I said I had to go through therapy. And through therapy, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I learned how to combat that little voice in my head, which ended up being a broken little girl. And that was, when you talked about what was holding you back, that was what was holding me back. That was the broken little girl was holding me back. And she's always going to be there. I realize that. There's always going to be that broken little girl. I've just learned how to help her along so that that broken little girl is no longer holding me back.
Nice.
I'm working with her. And I still struggle a lot with it. There are days, especially the past 2 years, where we've all struggled, where my sales have been down and I've contemplated giving up. In fact, very recently, I've contemplated giving up. And I went through that whole spiel, and my husband sat here and listened to me scream and rant about how I'm going to give up because I just can't do this anymore. Mm. And that was during one of those moments that I said there was that broken little girl, and I still struggle with it. But I think a lot of people have that broken child in them. Mm. And that's what we have to do, is we have to learn to overcome that broken child that wants to give up because they're scared. Mm. And like I said, I have a business now. I work from home. We're 10 years in now. So, and I have a YouTube channel. My son thinks I'm possibly the coolest mom on the face of this earth, which is great, because who doesn't want to be the coolest mom? I mean, not only am I a YouTuber, but I do TikTok videos as well. And that has inflated my coolness. Which, come on, let's be real. Who doesn't like being told that they're cool?
And you make things, right?
I make hair bows, headbands, the earrings that I was wearing earlier that had to vacate my ears. Yeah. Those, I branch out into things when I get creative.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
And my YouTube channel is just showing people how to do what I do.
Nice. Yeah, Katie, you want to do that too, right?
I just make a bunch of stuff. Like right now I'm on mermaid tails, those blankets where the little girls think they're mermaids.
Oh, yes.
I've made like 4 of them. I just got to sell them.
That's awesome. Carrie, I love it. No, that's a great point. So learning to work with that broken part. I also agree with that for myself.
I mean, because everybody pushes in overcoming it. But you can't always overcome it. And sometimes you just have to learn how to work with it.
Integrate it. Yeah. Like
yes.
There's a guy, one of my favorite pop psychologists, Ken Wilber, says, transcend and include. So, I have a PTSD diagnosis as well from growing up with my dad. And who else, what having a PTSD diagnosis is good for? Being a superhero.
Yeah. Look at Batman.
Right? You're very aware of things, right? I figure if I'm going to notice everything before anybody else does, I might as well put it to good use and map out the entire human world so that we can all learn how to not create oppression.
Yes.
And that's what I've done. So anyways, that's awesome.
Thank you, Carrie.
Carrie, thank you.
Thanks.
For first. Carrie, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome.
So I really want to thank you for having me. Absolutely. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Tara. I go by Tara Ellis. That's my married name. My official professional name is Tara Garrity Ellis. And there's a backstory to that. Short version is my dad asked me to keep it just before he died because I'm the last of the Garrity's. Oh, so wow. He asked me to keep it. So I have for professional purposes. I have, speaking of backstories, I have a long one.
Amazing backstory.
I have a pretty long one that basically goes a little something like this. I was one of those kids who the whole medical system wrote off. I wasn't supposed to live. I wasn't supposed to survive or do anything. In fact, when I was born, everybody told my mom and dad to just institutionalize me. and forget about me, go on with their lives, have another kid. That didn't go over well with my mom and dad, so they took me home. And I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I'm going to say, yes, I went through my fair share of bullying, my fair share of troubles, and I've gone through a lot of surgeries and hospitalizations. So there's all of that in my history, in my tapestry. Having said that, I do have 3 degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree.
Nice.
And I'm a published author, and now I'm a coach.
Woo!
And so it's kind of come full circle now. I was working as a social worker, which is what I have my master's degree in. And then something went wrong. I'm just going to put it very mildly. Something went horribly wrong. I had very, very, very bad pain in my head, and that necessitated an emergency neurosurgery. And it wasn't until well after that that they actually told me that the condition I have, which is Chiari malformation, is something that's pretty common in people who have my main condition, which is spina bifida. So I come to find out 36 years later, that the two actually go hand in hand. Would have been nice to know that growing up. Leaving that aside, I went through a number of years of hell. Wow. And hit a low point when I was sitting at the coffee table applying for social assistance. Because I had helped so many others, and I'm talking thousands of other people as a social worker apply for social assistance here in Ontario. And I never for 1 second thought that that would be me. And then it turned out to be me. So that was my low point. And for a really long time, I went through a really hard period. And then one day I just decided this was not going to be my life. And I picked myself up and I decided I was going to start owning my own business. Now, I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. Didn't have the first clue how to do this. And I had a brain injury. So putting those two things together, I'm one of those women who has to learn things 4 and 5 times before they actually click in. And on like the 6th time, that's when I know what to do with the information I learned 5 times. So having said that, it's been a long road, but now what I do is I coach other people who have chronic illness. And my program is called Entrepreneurship Made Simple, because in the 10 years that it's taken me to go through this journey, what I've done is found tips and tricks to make it as easy for me as possible to get through the day. And when I hear people all the time say, oh my God, it's so much work. Oh my God, there's so much to do. Oh my God, I can't keep up with A, B, and C. Be it the paperwork or the emails or whatever. And I have this very simple way of I do 3 things a day, and that's it. The rest is either systematized or outsourced. That's it. It's pretty simple. And that's the way I've been working for the last year.
That's awesome.
And it's just, it's been very helpful. And in fact, the reason Sean didn't know if I was coming today is because I spent the last 4 hours in bed. Because I was having a bad day. Today was not one of my good days. So one of my superpowers is being able to push through.
Yes.
And being able to simplify things and persevere. I once heard, and this kind of goes back to what Carrie was saying, that everybody feels like giving up. And the ones that succeed are simply the ones who refused to give up.
So good.
It doesn't take a magic pill. It's just the ones who refused to give up and had to find a way. But you have to have a huge why. Your why has to be bigger than your obstacles.
Yes, for sure.
Your why has to be your driving force, because your obstacles, especially when you have chronic pain or when you have mental illness, and I have both, they're going to be huge. You're going to have days when it's just not worth it. And you've got to have that thing that you can fall back on, that you can say to yourself, okay, why did I do this in the first place? Is this still relevant? And if it is, can I do one more thing today? And do one more thing. And if it's still relevant and you can't do one more thing, have grace on yourself. Just show yourself some grace and do it tomorrow. The world is not going to fall apart if an email doesn't get sent. What matters most is connection. What matters most is people feeling that they matter, that they have a place in the world, and that they feel loved. So if you're doing that, you're on the right path. I'm going to cut this short because I know somebody needs to get on real quick. I want to add something to what Sean was saying. We want to find a way to discover what we're good at, discover how to translate that into what we're meant to do in the world, and translate that into a way to make money. And that's what a lot of us do-gooders forget. I have forgotten that for years. I'm still catching up with the making money bandwagon because
Same.
I didn't get the memo that to have a business meant you made money. And that meant you had to make a sale. that memo didn't reach me until it didn't reach me for about 10 years. So now I'm figuring out how do we do that? So I'm all about, we have to add that piece in, and that's super duper important. Yes, we want to change lives. And part of that equation is bringing people into the circle, because when there is a transaction, then there is a value circle. You get to enter into a circle of value, and then you get to reap some rewards of a higher value of service from whatever you're buying. And then you get to perpetuate that onto the next person. So that's where I'm gonna land. Except to say that if anybody wants to reach me, I'm gonna put it in the chat. I'm gonna put my email into the chat. So if anybody wants to reach me, just to chat, just to ask what I do or how I do it, or just to get in contact with me for whatever reason, email me. And it's been a pleasure.
Awesome,
Thank you,
Tara.
Tara.
Woo! Thank you. I don't know how we do clapping on the Zoom meeting though. I can totally relate to
Yes.
that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I always laugh to myself, and Katie knows, because she'll hear me saying a lot of the stuff that I said to you guys. I'll say it, I'll connect it into my topics as a drug counselor, and the state insurance reimburses like $100 an hour for that. But you offer the same information like to the community, and they're like, $10? Hell no. And I'm like, dude, I don't think you understand. Like, people pay a lot of money for this. Or that they assume that because you're offering it for a low price, that it must not be valuable. And I'm like, well, actually, I have 14 years experience as a behavioral health professional, and I have all this education, and like, it's funny. But Sean, let's get you on the mic before you go live with your podcast, and you got to tell us a little bit about it, of course, and yourself. How you doing?
How's it going, guys? You guys have been on a trip with me. I was at a Social Security meeting with my mother tonight, so you guys got to see the background, a little bit of that.
That made it exciting.
Got to go for a walk with me a little bit, and I arrived here at the podcast studio to do our podcast tonight.
That's awesome.
A little bit about myself. I've been in recovery for 6 years. I've been clean for 6 years now.
Nice.
I originally fell into narcotics through pain pill prescriptions. Somebody else was mentioning that. And that was a real struggle, because when I came into the pain pill prescription era, it was when Oxycontin was coming onto the market.
Yep.
So the notion that once you got it stopped wearing off just a little bit, they increased. It was always to increase. It was the forecast model. Well, anyways, this started when I was 13 years old. By the time I was 16 years of age, I was taking 4 Oxy 80s a day. That is just insane. And I just have to put this out there. Janet Wilcox is acting head of the FDA, and she is the one who pushed for narcotics to be allowed to be given to people under the age of 18. And she is the one who's in charge of a lot of our COVID stuff right now. So just keep that in mind. But that's just a little background on that.
Yeah.
But anyways, going into like my addiction, it was hard. By the time I knew I had an addiction, it was too late. When I was in the beginning, like when I would start feeling ill or getting sick, I really thought it was just because I was getting a flu. Like, I was physically getting sick. I thought that I caught a cold. I had no idea what withdrawals were. So yeah, I struggled with that until 28 years of age, and that's a year prior to that, is when I started going into recovery. I started out with a Suboxone program, and I did about 2 months total in a Suboxone program. One thing that happened with me in the program was great. The counselors were great. It was at Seton here in Waterville. I'm not sure if they're still around or not, to be honest. But what happened with me is once the medication Suboxone built up into my system, I started developing migraines from it. So I did this for about a little over a month of struggling with these really bad migraines. Well, finally it got to the point where it was just easier to go back to using. So I gave up recovery. I thought that I thought recovery for me would be a detox program, finding a bed somewhere and being put in a detox program. Well, one thing that I learned in between this process is when I fully come off of when I fully came off the narcotics, I developed seizures from this stuff. It's crazy what it does to your body, and the fact of how your body just changes for it and wants it. So I just lost my spot. But anyways, what was I saying there?
Thinking about what helped you to get through that, tying in with the inner resources that, people might.
Yeah. So yeah. I thought that the Suboxone program wasn't going to work. So I thought that I was going to have to fall into a detox program and go into a bed. And then I learned what an MMT program was, which is methadone maintenance treatment. And I, for the longest time, thought that methadone was for essentially heroin addicts. I didn't know that it was for, because I was addicted to narcotic pain pills.
Yeah.
So I was under the assumption that there was no help for me. So yeah, it took about 2 years of MMT to finally equal out. And then been clean ever since. So
awesome.
Now I'm been blessed to get back with a friend of mine, Jeremy Lezot. He used to own the Play Factory here in Waterville. But we started a podcast called All Sides of Kennebec. And essentially it was a podcast that was just supposed to be general information on a conversation level, to essentially sit down a politician, a business owner, even random people off the street, kind of like what you're doing now, Sean.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's about setting your goals, and starting out, make those goals tiny. You don't want to make them too big.
Yep.
Because especially if you don't have your support structure or a good support structure, I stress that finding that support structure, whatever it may be for you, find it, and always have, when you're ready to get into recovery, when you find that support structure, and say you do slip, you have that fallback to this is what I'm going to do. That way you don't slip back into the perpetual motion of falling back into full-blown addiction. That's another thing that I tend to tell people a lot too, is you have to be very selfish in your recovery. If you are not selfish in your recovery, you're not going to succeed.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that I stress is being, you got to think for you got to be ready. You got to do it for yourself. I mean, kids do help motivate you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that kids aren't a motivator. Loved ones aren't a motivator. But you got to be at peace with yourself before you can build those rapport with people too. So
yes, I call it self-love. Same concept. A lot of people think it's selfishness if they're not familiar with it.
Right.
I've had a lot of people have told me, like, heroes are selfless. That's why they sacrifice themselves. And I'm like, no.
Yeah,
they sacrifice themselves because they love others and themselves. It's because they love, Mr. Spock sacrifices himself for the crew of Star Trek, not because he's selfless, but because he loves them, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's
and
different.
this is another thing too, is once you build whatever your support system is, like mine is politics, the podcast, trying to stay active in the community somehow. I know people have busy lives. It doesn't take much. Writing a blog, it doesn't take much to go to a few meetings. Reaching out. Another big stressor that I've kind of been pushing with people is we all have loved ones that are struggling, and we tend to hear family members always harping on others to, you have to go into recovery, and it always turns into a big blowout fight. One thing that I've learned is if you want to help these loved ones, start leaving information around them, such as pamphlets, because even sending them links to where to find help, because once they open it, or once they pick it up and they read it and they make that phone call or they write that email, it's their decision to get help, not not whoever's harping on them. So that's one big PSA, I guess, I've been stressing lately to help people is just grab a whole, like when you go to the doctor's office, grab a whole bunch of those recovery and addiction pamphlets. They do help because they do have resources that have info on them. So, and even if it isn't that pamphlet that one time that has that information, that second pamphlet you leave may. So it's just an idea to help people that are fighting with loved ones to try to get them to get the help.
Yeah,
just
that's awesome.
Try
Sean.
to figure out an outside strategy to get them to look outside of the box, I guess.
Absolutely. Love it.
I also wanted to thank everybody else that shared their stories tonight.
And hopefully
Definitely,
we'll do these again.
Yeah, invite me. I definitely would enjoy coming on again.
Awesome,
We're
man.
proud of you.
Get a
Thank
link
you,
to
guys.
your podcast?
Yeah.
It's all ties to
Yes.
Kennebec. Hashtag ask.
Can you
ASK.
type it in here on the comment side, maybe?
Yeah, I gotta go into more here, I think.
Yeah.
Chat.
Everybody's welcome to share whatever connecting info they want on that chat side.
We've been doing that already.
I know, I saw that. That's good. All right, you guys. Well, let's go ahead and get this train rolling again. Just to let you know, I'm having such a good time. Thanks for making my dream come true.
Thank you, everybody, for letting me join.
Hey, Nick, thanks. How are you liking it so far?
It's very deep, and I can relate to everything that everybody's been talking about.
Nice.
So,
Awesome.
if it's okay with you, at the end, I would like to share a little bit about what I'm going through and where I've been and everything, if that's cool with you.
That's part of my dream plan. To have people that come to chat about it, because that's the whole applying the knowledge part, right? It's nice in my head as a theory, but it's better when people are actually doing something with it. So Debbie, you're up. How are you doing today, Debbie?
I'm doing good today. Thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be here, Sean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great group of people. I'm really enjoying hearing the stories of people overcoming challenges. And
yes,
you know, I love the openness and the vulnerability I'm seeing here, which is so really that's the way we help others and support others.
Yes,
when we're open and honest, because a lot of people on the online world, especially, we see just the pictures of everybody looking like they're having a great time. And then we think that we're alone, and that's not really true.
Exactly.
Yes, it's not reality.
Right.
So, you know, I'm Debbie Orman. I'm the Tai Chi Health Coach is my business name. And I have been in business part-time to full-time for a few years now. I've been building my business, and just I can relate to having given up a few times and gone into a state of depression over it, and anxiety, because it was my dream. And then I thought, I'm just not good enough. And, you know, it's always, there's a it's a lot of it is, there's a number of things going on there when I look back at that. And it's about, if I look back at my journey, when I started out, I didn't really know exactly how to get there or who my audience was. And I wanted to please everybody and have that external validation. And, it's also about what prices do I charge if we're looking at people who are building a business. And I work with mostly entrepreneurs as well as many moms or even women. And I started out with a self-sacrificing type of person, and I would really do anything and everybody for people and not charge enough for my services. And also even in my family, I've got 2 teenagers, and I've really discovered that self-love, as is the theme here, I believe, besides the heroicness of things and overcoming things, it's so important that self-love. But I didn't even really know what does that mean, because it seems as women we're taught to put others first and be self-sacrificing, and that's praised. And I feel like I'm sort of skipping around here. I guess what I want to give you guys is a few takeaways of what you can do and immediate takeaways. So it's not going to be my life story.
Yeah.
I call myself the Tai Chi Health Coach because I've been doing Tai Chi for 30 years now. I'm 52. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Long time. Yeah. Tai Chi is actually a martial art, an internal martial art, and it is meditation in motion. So it's something I'm just gonna, me and Sean talked about conscious breathing and how important that is. And breathing is part of the Tai Chi movement. So the best way to teach you something is to actually do it together, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, and you think about breathing and it seems like such a second nature thing that we all are like, yeah, right, I don't care. But really, we're all breathing during the day. However, conscious breathing can actually be so powerful and so transformative. Let's just do it. So one way to breathe would be where you breathe in, inhale for a few seconds, and then exhale twice as long. So I'm going to combine that with a movement. And if you want to get up and do it with me, that would be beautiful. If you want to watch, that's also beautiful, whichever way, but you'll get a little bit more out of it if you actually get up and do it, because that exhale being twice as long is where you get the calm. Okay. And you can reshift your nervous system at any given moment. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm just going to show you something super simple.
Yeah.
Just you're just breathing in through your nose, and then as if you're moving through water, exhale twice as long out through your mouth. Yeah, you can't see me. Okay, here we go. And you won't do it wrong. It's not about how you look. It's about how you feel inside. And then again, this is just one example. And then let's do one more. You're relaxed, you're upright, your feet, feel your feet rooted on the ground. You're grounded, you're connected. You're safe. So that's an example.
Love it.
Did that feel good?
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very calming that people really, that emphasis on the exhale. Inhale is excitement. The exhale is that calm. And when you integrate it with that movement, it's really magical what you can shift. And we were talking a lot I'm glad that felt good. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I forget to breathe and I just stop as a speaker. Because I'm like, and right now I'm just going to stop and breathe for a second. It resets my nervous system. Yeah. So when you do this, the other thing I integrate with my Tai Chi as I'm building my app is Torah. I'm a Jewish woman, and Tai Chi Torah health coaching. So it's the Old Testament, like the Bible, but Bible's based on it. So I actually just principles of it. And what's so beautiful about that is you're actually, you're able to, I had a thought and I lost my thought. So I'm just going to breathe. Will you breathe with me again?
Yeah.
It works. Oh, I know what I was going to say. For every breath you take, a rabbi taught me this. It was really quite amazing. It was about meditation. For every breath you take, it's like a new moment in time. It's a new opportunity to create, that's been created for you. So every moment, even if it just seems mundane, and you don't have to be religious to just understand this. Every time you take a breath, it reminds you that you have a moment to start over and to really value that moment. And what can I create in that moment? It doesn't mean you have to be running around doing something every minute, but you get to start over. And this moment, you can see the beauty in that moment. And isn't that beautiful?
That is. That dovetails really well with what I meant earlier about managing each situation.
Yes.
Like in AA, they say one day at a time. And I like to break it down further into one moment at a time. So
that's beautiful.
Connect the breathing to that like, what am I doing now? How am I going to manage now? Because people would come to a group like this and say, Sean, I don't need to be here. I already know all this stuff. And I would say to them, well, then why am I not having a good time? Because if you knew how to do it, we'd be both having a great time.
Yeah. True.
We need to learn how to manage the situation. See you, Sean.
We do.
For well-being,
We need to be able to manage that moment in time, so that even in the chaos, as we spoke about at the beginning, that we're managing inside of ourselves. And that's why I'm building an app called Tai Chi for Inner Peace.
Right.
Yeah. And it's all right now, there's so many people struggling. We're all struggling in some way. And some you see outwardly more than others. And it's very challenging for everybody right now, truthfully. So what can we do? And it's obtainable and something quick that you can do. These moves are not difficult to learn, but also on a practical level, when we were talking about a lot of people here having PTSD and so forth, I thought about something that probably you probably already aware of these possibilities, but I couldn't not mention it just in case. I'm hearing that it was a long-term abusive situation. So it's not something simple like a car accident, unfortunately, where it's just one time of the EFT, emotional freedom technique, or tapping. But sometimes shifting, little shifts can be, I don't know if you may be quite familiar with these things. And sometimes little shifts can occur. And sometimes the therapy is great too, but sometimes people can go through years of therapy, talk therapy, and not get the physical shifts. There's also something that I heard about the other day. It was TFT, which is older than EFT. And I can't even think of what it stands for, but it was the same type of thing. And it was about tapping around. There was somebody who actually worked with tapping around the emotions. And specifically, the person didn't have to reenact the actual trauma of what they went through. And that was really beautiful. So there are options available. I wanted to address that as I was listening. That just struck me. It's something worth saying. And there's tapping apps. There's something called a tapping app that are free, and people can do that. I sometimes do tapping as part of my morning routine, but I suggest everybody do some sort of routine and habit stack. That's the one other thing I'm going to really point out to you. Habit stack. I'm a master of habit change because I'm a health coach, and habit stacking. So what I do, finally discovered a way to remember and really motivate myself to write my schedule every day. Now listen to what I did. I'm going to give the example, coffee and calendar. I made that up. And so now every time I have my coffee, I write my calendar. And it took me a long time to just figure that out. So now I have a positive association. Coffee, I like coffee. So it was like in the morning, something that I automatically remember to do.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to integrate something like, for example, Tai Chi, breathing, that's a 1 minute thing, right? And you could do that every time you, whatever it is you already do. You go to the gym to exercise, or you brush your teeth, and you remember to do it. So that habit stacking is very good. And it's really a habit. How we think is a habit. It's not as, well, there's a lot of stuff that we think is some things we can't change. And it's very frustrating for us when we hear people say, well, just think differently and all that stuff. But you get this opportunity when you realize how much power you actually have. It's not that you're not successful if you're not doing it. It takes tiny steps, and you need someone holding you by the hand, sometimes like a coach.
Yep.
And yet you're so capable, so much more capable than you realize right now. Just by taking those tiny steps, one tiny step can swing a huge door. And just don't underestimate the value of everything you're doing when you break it down. Someone else mentioned that, breaking it down into tiny steps. Everything you do is valuable. And just know that about yourself. Embrace your all of you, not just the good part. Those things that seem like your challenges are perhaps your biggest opportunities to enlighten others and be vulnerable and share. Who knows what it is? Maybe you're creating a business out of it, but love all of yourself. That part of you is something good. There's something good in it. There's something good in all of you. So I guess awesome. That's what I want to
love it.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're
love
welcome.
I'm so super pumped to check out that Tai Chi app. What is that, the name of it? What?
Yeah, Tai Chi for inner peace. But you're not going to find the app on there now. I started a 6-week program with 5 women, Tai Chi for Tai Chi Torah health coaching, group health coaching, and I'm on the 4th week this Friday, but I haven't actually finished building the app. But what I'm going to give you is my email address, as well as my Facebook name, Debbie Orman. I'll write that for now. How does that?
Well, because you're absolutely right, Debbie. I think it's wonderful. The physical embodiment part for all of us on a healing journey. I'm not licensed as a trauma person or a mental health counselor, but just working in the drug and alcohol field, that's kind of what I was doing. But like you said, some of the limitations around that is that it's a lot of talking and stuff. But what you talked about, if you can integrate that physical movement part, I love just watching people do Tai Chi. I think it looks amazing. They just look relaxed. But what Debbie mentioned, my brother and I, he's not here right now, but he and I had talked about breathing, and both of us, like somewhere along the line, I do the deep breathing. So I have the big barrel chest full of air and I can talk for 10 minutes straight, but he doesn't breathe at all. So we both talked about the value of learning how to push out your belly, and just, it's okay if it looks big, you got to relax and in and out and all that. So I thought it'd be cool to have you go into that a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm an occupational therapist as well as my background. So it kind of integrates nicely about, it's all about everything, right? We're about self-care and everything we're doing.
Exactly. All the different counseling modalities are all about integration. All right. We ready to go on to Robin from New Brunswick, Canada? How you doing, Robin? Gotta unmute.
Sorry, it's like super chaotic in my house all the time, so I apologize if you hear anything in the background. So I think I'm done talking because Debbie pretty much covered everything that I was going to say. No, I just resonate a lot with a lot of things you're saying. And I like to use essential oils to come back to the breath because you literally have to breathe to smell them. So anyways, I will go back a little bit. I just first want to start by saying thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm very humbled that you invited me here.
Thank you.
And
my pleasure.
I have just been like blown away by this guy. So Lois, you have some great sons. Like you must be
Yes,
there,
I
like
do.
super beaming with joy. So yeah, I met Sean through social media influencing kind of thing. So, and we're both creating apps, and yeah, we got talking, and I'm absolutely in love with his whole approach and the superheroes and everything. Because I've been telling my kids that I'm Wonder Woman now for like at least 7 years. So, I mean, I kind of look like her a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
No. I think I was born a people pleaser. Can you please turn that down? And I was born like feeling energies in the room. So I always kind of used that sense to please people, and it just ended up turning into like my worst nightmare by the end of the time I actually realized that's what was happening. And honestly, that's like pretty recent. Through my journey, I guess I started by doing my own business as an esthetician. I had a little boy, and that was probably the beginning of the evolution of, holy, there's more to life than everybody else. Now I have this little creature. It was, I don't want to say it too loud, but like an abusive sort of relationship that I had to get us both out of. And obviously that's he's still around and he still gets to see his dad and stuff. But anyways, shortly thereafter, I went from having this like awesome aesthetics business where I was like renting a chair, but working with other women. And my husband now kind of came along and was like, man, you're paying more than a mortgage for these two places. Like you need to cut it a little bit, like you're weighing over your head. And I was 100% way over my head, but I didn't want to like go back and live with my parents and things like that. So I ended up coming home here where we are now, and I can work from home here. But I ended up pregnant with this one, and I didn't actually have to work a whole lot. I was blessed in that sense for my husband. You know, it was better for me to take a client here and there versus go and start renting a room somewhere else. But I became the like full-time babysitter of everybody else's kids, and I wasn't making money. And it was like, now I'm stuck in this world of like, I'm just a mom and I'm just a wife and I have no identity. And I don't know what to do with myself. So just before our wedding, somebody introduced me to essential oils, and that was like literally like the life-changing moment of my life, and for so many more reasons than just the fact that there's essential oils and they do so many things for our health and wellness. For me, it was like emotional benefits. Most people that come across them, you know, they either think they're pretty scents for their house, or they're like targeting some sort of ailment like pain or, you know, headaches or I can't sleep or whatever. For me, it was very much like how much it impacted the fact that it changed the energy in the room, that it changed how I felt about myself. It changed how other people felt when they were around me, and maybe the lack thereof, maybe not noticing the energies quite so much. Anyways, my upline, great little community that I got to be a part of. And that was something I didn't have in anything other than the family. So that was like the first kind of like get into something bigger than me. She was like, you need to put this oils like with the stuff you're already doing. And I'm like, what do you mean? But I had this mindset that I failed at that. Like I failed at being an esthetician. Like I'm not an esthetician anymore. So I felt like, I guess I kind of needed like proof of the fact that oils work. Like yeah, there's science, but like I needed like proof to tell other people. And I started to become better with like self-knowledge. And I find that that was like another big deal, because knowing and understanding like why our nervous system acts the way that it does, because it's triggered from an emotion, like there's so many things. Again, sorry for the background noise.
No, that's the huge part though. I know you were thinking about the what's your why part, but that self-knowledge piece is another huge thing for people that are starting out a journey.
Right. So I think that, I guess the message that I want to get at is like, I always wanted to be better. And that was a good why. The kids came along. That's a good why. And now the why is like, I want everybody else to feel what I got to feel once I got out of my own way. Because when we're stuck, we're just stuck either people pleasing or feeling like we failed all the time, or feeling like we don't have time, or feeling like everybody else is more important than you are. Then at what point are you going to take responsibility for the fact that you're the one that has to change those things? Yeah. And just like Debbie said, and just like everybody's kind of touched on the fact that it's baby steps. Like we can't change in one day. There's no magic pill. It's literally like what are the results that we want. And I know I was like kind of fell in this place where a goal, don't tell me to do that. That is totally scary. You can't tell me to do that. I'm supposed to be content with where I'm at. Right? So just knowing that you want something more than you have right now, that's enough of a goal. That's all I needed as a seed, right? And so if I'm making a choice, is it in alignment with being better than I am right now? So, you make like how many choices in the run of a day? Sometimes you're not going to make the right one, but that didn't mean like the other 50% of them that day were okay towards that person that you want to become. Next day, let's go for 75% of the choices being better, right? Like just small, consistent steps, 1% better every day. Take responsibility for your actions and learn about why your body works the way that it works. So I could go on for days about my journey. I can go on for days about how essential oils helped it, but like really allowing myself to get into a place that I wasn't really comfortable with, I really didn't know a whole lot about, but I got to meet people that helped me see something in myself that I didn't at the time, and eventually just consistently showing up in that place. I found you, and then I found all of these people, so thank you.
and you know what, that's really how it works. Like first it took me a few years to get my mom to buy in, right, to what I was talking about, right, Lois? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Katie started getting it. Like we would be talking about it at work, and I'm like, "What is going on with all the staff people? And why are they don't seem to understand that blah blah blah." And then she started getting it, and then we all started working together. And then you and I talked, and you told me you liked the concept, and I thought, well, we should do something. And same thing with Debbie, and we might have invited 10 different, people in general, but the ones that came, and we'll all work together, just like the little Care Bears used to do with their little shine their light, the rainbow.
Care Bear countdown.
It's a more potent, powerful force for good, right? So, what's the name of your app, Robin?
Oh, that was a cool thing. I always just wanted to have like this store where you could go in and you get anything that you needed for you. So that could be like an esthetician or a hairstylist or a chiropractor, or maybe you do Tai Chi and some yoga in the basement part of it. Now, I wanted the store to be called You, and I've called my app You. And to my amazement, it was actually available. I'm like, how is there not an app called You already? But anyways, that's what it's called.
Nice.
It's called.
And so just for people that don't know, these will be available eventually on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store.
Yes.
For download.
So for now, I've got a few courses, and what I'd like for it to be is, a place where you can like hopefully track some of these habits that you're wanting to stack or that you're wanting to improve on. But I also want it to be kind of like a directory of all of the people that you can reach that will help you get to those places that you want to go.
Exactly. Like somebody like Debbie, like I was thinking same thing.
Yeah.
Because right, my focus is kind of on the social, emotional, behavioral management, but there's other things in life that you can learn about to help you manage too, like balancing a checkbook, physical health.
For
So
sure. But I think really you're on the right track. Like I think it has to start with your like emotional and your emotional balance. And nothing else is going to be successful until you can actually be open enough to realize that you're worth the effort.
exactly. Woo! Love it. All right. Let's
So true.
thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.
I think that's all the speakers that I had that are here right now. I don't see Rita, unless Rita's hiding out somewhere. Nick, do you want to tell us what you were thinking about earlier? How are you doing now?
I'm good. Sorry I don't have video. My camera is not too good.
Oh, that's okay.
But basically, I have Micah. It's mentally ill, chemically addicted. I have dual diagnosis. I have PTSD. I have borderline personality disorder, ADHD, depression. And
Yep.
then on top of that, I was addicted to crack cocaine and heroin for a very, very long time. I'm 41 now.
Yep.
I start using when I was about 15. So that's majority of my life.
Right.
I have a little over a year, January 27th, made a year that I've been clean.
Nice. Congratulations.
Proud of you.
Thank you. I'm on the Suboxone program. I'm on psych med.
Yep.
But the main thing that I've been doing is I go to a program, Rutgers Behavioral Health in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for mental health and addiction counseling in one.
Nice.
And I do like mindfulness, emotion regulation. We do different kinds of like meditations and breathing. And like everybody kept saying, it's not about the bigger picture at the moment for me. It's them little goals.
Yep.
Because I'm not where I want to be, but I thank God I'm not where I used to be.
Like that. That's a good one. That's awesome.
And it's just a big part of my recovery is like everybody said, like I have to basically love myself and I got to put me first.
Right.
Because I used to put everybody else before me. I would give my shirt off my back to somebody and walk home without a shirt and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Right.
But now I'm like, all right, well, I got a hoodie on, so I'll give you my t-shirt, but I'm going to keep my hood. So I'm looking after me, but I'm still going to help you at the same time.
Exactly.
So that's basically all I got.
No, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank everybody else for letting me participate and share, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and well, you just broke it down. That's really put it all together and integrate it. That's what it's all about, is just managing moment by moment to recover yourself and your situation. Even if you don't have a history of substance use, like some people here had experiences with domestic violence or whatever. But I always tell people, even if you don't know anything about domestic violence or substance use, you still benefit from trying to create a situation that's good for yourself and others and your goals, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I remind myself when I'm driving down the road, like, I don't have to speed. I don't have to pass that guy. I don't have to get mad. I can.
Oh, well, come on. That's the fun part.
Right. Let's see. Lois, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing great. I'm just so proud of all these people that have put themselves out there and shared. That takes a lot of courage. And I'm just so proud of everyone that has taken that risk of sharing. And I am so inspired just from listening to all of you. I really applaud all of your journeys. It's been so amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. How about Katie? How you doing over there? What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm loving this. I think this is great. I can't wait to do more of these.
Awesome.
It's great.
And I think Debbie, you said your phone battery is going down. Okay.
Yeah, she's grabbing her cord.
Oh, okay, cool. Carrie, are you there? Anything you want to add, or any thoughts or questions about any of the speakers' topics?
I had a great quote at the end of the thing I didn't read because I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And it was something I found on Pinterest, and I think that it's something we should all remember. Difficult times can define you, diminish you, or develop you. You decide.
Ooh,
Love it.
I like that.
I like that.
Say it one more time.
Difficult times can define you, diminish you, or develop you. You decide.
Nice. That's awesome.
Very
Very
And
cool.
we've all been sitting here talking about how we've had difficult times,
Yep.
and we've made the choice to let it, not hold us back. That it's helped us develop ourselves.
Yes, exactly. I sometimes, I don't always want to say it depending on what audience I'm talking to, because some people might take it the wrong way, but I almost thought of it as a kind of a gift that you would never receive. You would never want it. Like if life had told me that I'm going to go through all this difficulty as a kid, I would have said, thanks anyways. I'm all set.
Yeah.
I'll stay up in the heavenly realm or whatever and not incarnate on earth, because I don't feel like having to go through that. But because I was able to, cry it out and face my pain, because in my 20s, I didn't face my pain. I had a lot of pent up anger towards my dad and stuff, and bad dreams about him, as people talk about with, various mental health symptoms. But that can happen after bad things happen to people. But eventually I was working actually, my mom and I both went to work with a male batterer intervention program. So we were, as part of our healing journey, to learn how to confront our abuser. And one of the first thing I realized was that it was actually a line by Freud, I think, who a lot of people don't like now, but he had said, the famous psychologist had said, he said, hatred is not the opposite of love. Apathy is. If you hate someone, it's not that you don't have feelings for them. You do. You just wish that, he said, you're mad about them because they're not doing for you what you wish that they would do. And so you hate them because so I realized I didn't hate my dad. I hated the fact that he wasn't being a father to me. You know what I mean? And that helped me to see the men that I was working with in the heterosexual relationships. That's kind of what it was based in. And I could see that they were just men who were making decisions and using behavioral strategies, and they were not good for them or their partner or their kids. And so the only way to reach them was going to be to tap into their own self-interest. Why does it matter to you to be a loving person? You know what I mean? Like, it's better for you to care about your wife than to hurt your wife. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to be left behind, and you're going to spend the next 20 years sitting on the streets of Vegas drinking yourself to death. And what I realized is when people use those kind of forced strategies and they hurt other people in whatever form, they always get the opposite of what they thought they were going to get. They thought they were going to get some kind of respect, by demanding it, and instead they get left behind or assaulted. Or what I always say now is, when people get mistreated, they resent the person that mistreated them. So if I really want to make it towards my goal, then I need to include other people along the way. And so, like, I actually heard that originally, something like that, from Stephen Covey in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that when it comes to working with others, going slow is actually the fastest way. Right. So don't try to I don't have to include Robin. I don't have to include Lois. I don't have to include Katie in the plan. They're just not relevant, because 10 or 15 steps later, I'm going to look around and go, where are they? They're not here anymore. How come they don't want to stick around? Because I didn't include them. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
Whereas if you work with people as a team and you focus on that good relationship along the way, it might take you a little longer to get there, but you will get there. So it's like actually the fastest way. So anyways, does anybody else have any thoughts that they want to throw out? Debbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. The building community is really so important, I've found, and I didn't always have that community, and I'm working on that more and more. It's like build those connections, and who you surround yourself with, is really important and can be super supportive. And that's sometimes we feel like we don't have a choice if we're stuck. And that's really challenging to the max, what you guys went through, you and your mom and, Lois. So I feel that, and yet it's so important to that community. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Community, definitely. And also boundaries. That was my big thing I learned. Boundaries.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In the Torah, it actually says chesed is kindness, and that has to go along with boundaries, or else it's not good. So they actually recommend, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? I call that a virtue pair. Like sometimes a good thing, my friend Dave says sometimes the opposite of a good thing is a good thing.
It's not good.
So for me, I like when I mentioned the guys in the Batterer program, I like to say that you have to have both self-interest and humanity, the genuine concern for the well-being of others, because too much self-interest can dip into self-centeredness, right? But you can prevent that by having a care for others. But if you have too much care for others, like you said, people are too self-sacrificing, people-pleasing, they end up falling into enabling doormat behavior, right?
Yeah.
And they need to have a little bit more selfishness, or
well, they get resentful then too, so it actually doesn't turn out so friendly.
Exactly. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not a mental health guy, but the mental health word they say is pro-social, which means good for the group, good for the team. So I don't want to be like Voldemort from Harry Potter or the Terminator or Lex Luthor, the bad guy, because why? The bad guy doesn't care about how the team does. And I don't want to be like Peter Pettigrew from Harry Potter, who's the minion role. He cuts his own hand off in order to avoid being punished by the villain, right? So he works for that character. He does the bidding of Voldemort, even though he's otherwise a good guy inside, but he's playing that doormat role, right? And so both of those characters for me represent a way of doing things that don't make it to the victory lane. They don't get to the touchdown. And that's why I say be the hero, because when you let other people, scare you into hurting yourself for them or giving up your resources, you're not going to make it. And same thing, what I learned working with all those guys, like Katie said, if she had to set boundaries with somebody that was crossing her boundaries, right? So we don't want to be the one that's crossing the boundaries, and we don't want to be the one that is letting the boundaries be crossed. My mom and I both saw those things play out. And, for me, the hero thing is just a metaphor for, it's an aspirational ideal. It doesn't mean anybody's perfect or better than or narcissistic or anything. It's just like I like Nick and Sean alluded to. If people are going to call us junkie or addict or alcoholic, I would rather have them call us heroic. I'd rather be called something that's going somewhere, than something else. I know there's a couple other people that were kind of listening in the background. I'm recording it, so sometimes people don't want to be on screen and stuff, but I didn't know, Carrie L, if you have anything you want to add, or the person on the fire tablet, you guys are welcome to as well before we wrap up. We got a couple minutes left. Oh, hey, it's Addie. Hey, Addie, how you're muted. There you go.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm at work, so that's why I had it all off. So
nice. What do you think, Addie? How you doing?
I'm doing good, and it was good. It was nice to listen to everybody, and I learned some things about breathing I didn't know, so that was good.
Nice. Addie's doing her own version of being a guardian of the good life. She works at the dispatch at the police department, taking calls. So
thank you. Thank you, Addie.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
That's amazing, Addie. That's amazing.
Yes.
I watch 911 and it terrifies me. So
Yeah. And she and I went to school together when we were kids. All right, you guys. Anybody else have anything they want to add before we wrap up? Everybody knows where to find each other online if you want. I'll have this
Yes.
recording up on my Facebook Hero Support Guy fan page. And
I just want to add one more thing,
yeah.
Sean. Carrie's quote reminded me of it. I had it written down. One sec, babe. Wait. For a lot of people, when we're going through this journey, like even when you start to notice that you're giving to everybody and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that so much. Regardless, we're always wanting to be of service. Like, so if you can find a way of being of service without putting yourself last, telling people your message is and your story, it like lifts up everybody, and that's like being part of the communities and things like that. And I know for a long time I wouldn't say my stories because I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of other people. Like I felt embarrassed almost to share it. So somebody said to me like a couple weeks ago that your mess is your message.
Yeah.
And so I've been hearing that like over and over and over for the last week or so. So I thought that might be a good way. Everybody should just, if you're feeling, down and you want to be of service to somebody, share your message with somebody else, and you can probably feel better helping someone else.
Awesome.
What I talked about with Sean is that there's a lot of stigma around having mental health issues. We don't want to talk about it because people look at you funny. And that's one of the things that I wanted to do when talking about my story, was breaking that stigma.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Same here.
Because so many of us who've lived through domestic abuse don't want to talk about it because it's shame.
Yep. And actually, that's a great point. I meant to say when Debbie started talking earlier about heroism and self-love, I like to say that heroism is love in action, because a lot of people, I like all those other things we mentioned we don't like, right? You could think of them as being kind of fear, shame based. They're fear based. I'm trying to demand respect from you because I'm afraid that if I was vulnerable with you, you wouldn't want to just give it to me, right? Like, and I don't want to set limits with you and have boundaries with you because I'm afraid what that might happen, that might happen afterwards, right? And maybe something bad would happen, and so we might not want to do that, right? We don't want anyone to do anything that they don't feel comfortable doing because that could be unsafe for them. But when you're feeling comfortable and you're prepared and you've gone to Heroify and learned how to be assertive and set limits, and you come and you've talked about how to do it and you're good with that, and you've practiced at McDonald's, by saying, no, I don't want to upsize my meal, and no, I already donated to the charity yesterday, so I'm not going to do it again today, or maybe, whatever. And you feel comfortable setting that limit, then you can do it. And you realize that I love my father when I say, no, I'm not giving you $500 because I know you'll use it on crystal meth. So that would be love. Or, hey, bud, it seems like you're having a hard time. Want to talk about it? So you don't go home and kick the dog. You know what I mean? Like, but people don't want to do that, right? Because then we talk and we're upset and people look nervous and anxious. That's where the breathing comes in and stuff, is learning how to, what do I need? What additional resources do I need to access or add to my repertoire so that I do feel comfortable to have a love-based interaction with someone? You know what I mean?
One of the things that I have had to learn over the years is to become more at ease with other people's uncomfortability.
Right.
If I limit with them, I was never okay seeing them react.
Yeah.
I would just sell myself short every time. And I just want to encourage people that, you can take your power back, from villains, and you can learn to become more comfortable watching their uncomfortability when you do assert yourself in a polite way, you know, in a loving way.
Because you're not actually hurting them.
That's right.
Like
And
what you're describing is, if they're uncomfortable, it's not that they're actually uncomfortable. They're not used to it. You know what I mean?
right. And for me, being a hero in my own life has been huge. I have been a hero to myself, and I don't apologize for that. You know,
Right.
I think I admire and respect all day long the people that pull someone from a train track just in time. But you know what? I had to go get myself out of the POW camp, so to speak. I had to say I'm worth it, you know, and love myself, because really, like I think Debbie had alluded to it, that you start to build resentment, you know, if you're really not loving yourself and you're still giving out, giving, something's gonna give after a while, and it's not.
Absolutely, you guys.
Yes.
Awesome.
And just
last thought.
Yeah, just one thing in response to what you just said. It's like, it's almost like I discovered that when I was going through leadership, that I wasn't really putting myself first and valuing myself enough to do my own business stuff. I was always putting other people first. So that's when you're on time for somebody else, but you're not on time on your calendar for yourself. That's not self-love. So you get to be generous and self-love at the same time. And that's a happy balance. And we get permission to be confident rather than what we're told that we need to not be. As women, you know, we kind of get that education, or even men.
Exactly. We're all kind of talking about a win-win, right? Instead of having a win now for me and a lose for everybody else, or a lose for Lois and a win for her partner in the past, we want to have a win-win as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like, you want to go to Wendy's and I want to go to McDonald's. Let's go to both places instead of somebody not getting their need met. You know?
Well, you're not responsible for them. You get to be in responsibility, not responsible for them, though.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
8:29, everybody. So thank you so much for being here. I wanted to respect the boundary. I promised 8:30. So do me a favor, you guys. Go on, you know, my page or something, or send me an email or whatever, and give me a little reference if you liked it, and I'll add it to the website about Heroify. Tell me what you thought, and also anything I could do better or change, or we could add to make it more fun or whatever. And thank you so much for being here, speakers.
Bye,
and guests.
everyone.